Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a subject that honestly sounds like it's ripped straight from a spy novel.
It really does.
But it carries very real, very complex implications for global security. We're talking about a hypothetical military strike by the United States on Iran's nuclear facilities.
An operation apparently codenamed internally Midnight Hammer.
Midnight Hammer, yeah. And what's truly fascinating here, maybe even surprising, is the deep historical paradox right at the heart of this whole confrontation. We're going to unpack how the very nation, now seen as the main antagonist of Iran's nuclear ambitions, actually helped kickstart them decades ago.
That's right. The roots of this whole high-stakes standoff go way deeper than you might think.
Indeed. And you'll discover how a program that was initially framed, for peaceful purposes, really set the stage for the tensions we see today. This isn't just about missiles and bunkers. It's a story of decades of shifting geopolitics, this constant technological cat-and-mouse game.
And the huge long-term consequences of actions, even hypothetical ones like this.
So our mission today is to try and cut through some of that noise, reveal the hidden layers of this scenario, help you understand not just what might happen,
but the why. Why it matters on the global stage and what those ripple effects, those cascading consequences really mean.
Exactly, and here's where it gets really interesting. So let's tackle that historical paradox first. It sounds almost unbelievable now, doesn't it?
It really does.
But back in the 1950s, under President Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace program,
a famous initiative,
the U.S. was actually key in helping Iran set up its nuclear program. And this wasn't some secret deal, it was public. Promoting peaceful nuclear energy, yes, but also, shoring up alliances during the Cold War.
It's quite the twist. Iran, back then under the pro-Western Shah, was a major beneficiary.
How so? What did they actually get?
Well, in 1957, the U.S. provided the essentials. The very first research reactor, nuclear fuel, crucial technical training. This eventually led to the Tehran research reactor in '67, a 5-megawatt facility, using highly enriched uranium, mind you, capable of producing plutonium. And it wasn't just the US, even a German company, Kraftwerk, was involved in building the Bushehr plant before the '79 revolution.
And this isn't just like ancient history, it's fundamental to Iran's narrative today.
Absolutely critical.
It lets the regime frame its nuclear pursuits not as some aggressive new ambition, but as a sovereign right. One that was once approved, even supported by the West.
Which makes U.S. objections now seem, hypocritical from Tehran's perspective.
Think about that for diplomacy. How do you negotiate when one side sees its program as a fundamental right, practically gifted to them by the very country now trying to stop it? That paradox complicates everything.
That context is absolutely vital. Then comes 1979, the Islamic Revolution, a seismic shift.
Everything changes.
Completely.
Yeah.
U.S. Embassy hostage crisis, the total break in relations, all nuclear cooperation just stopped. Dead halt.
So Iran, isolated under sanctions, where did they turn?
They found new partners. Pakistan, China, North Korea. And importantly, the program often went underground, developed in secret. Its whole trajectory changed.
Which leads us to 2002, that big revelation.
Right, an Iranian opposition group revealed secret sites, Natanz for enrichment, Arak for heavy water. That lit the fuse for an international crisis.
And eventually, years later, that led to the 2015 deal, the JCPOA.
The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal, negotiated with the P5+1. So the US, UK, France, China, Russia, plus Germany.
And the basic idea was restrictions on Iran's program in exchange for lifting sanctions.
Exactly. It was a complex, hard-won agreement.
But it didn't last long.
No. It's striking how fast that consensus fell apart. Just 3 years later, May 2018, President Trump pulls the U.S. out, calls it a terrible deal.
And Iran's response?
They started walking back their commitments, resumed higher levels of uranium enrichment, started limiting access for IAEA inspectors. It just kicked off this cycle of escalation.
This constant back and forth, this tension.
Precisely why a scenario like Operation Midnight Hammer, this hypothetical strike, moves from, a distant possibility to something planners seriously consider.
Okay, so let's zero in on the specific targets in this hypothetical operation. These aren't just factories, they're symbols of national pride, key points in their nuclear infrastructure. First, Fordow.
Right, Fordow fuel enrichment plant. This one's built deep inside a mountain near the city of Qom.
Boy, there.
Geology is defense. It was chosen specifically for invulnerability against conventional bombs, maybe even low-yield tactical nukes. It's their strategic ace in the hole, buried deep.
Then there's Natanz.
Natanz is larger, an older enrichment plant, also underground but shallower than Fordow, making it comparatively more vulnerable.
It's been talked about as a target before, hasn't it?
Oh yes, for years, underscores its long-standing importance.
And finally, Isfahan.
The Isfahan Nuclear Technology Center. This one is crucial for the very start of the fuel cycle. It's where they do uranium conversion, turning raw uranium or concentrate, yellow cake, into uranium hexafluoride gas, the UF6 that feeds the centrifuges at Fordow and Natanz.
Ah, okay, so hitting Isfahan
Would essentially paralyze the entire front end of the fuel chain. Even if the centrifuges elsewhere survived, they wouldn't have the feedstock.
So the goal of Midnight Hammer, it seems, is pretty clear. Cripple the whole program. Cut off its head, basically.
Yeah, by hitting both enrichment capacity and the raw material processing, aiming for total paralysis.
But how realistic is that total paralysis, really? Especially given, the history of secret programs. What are the limits here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The immediate goal is certainly to set the program back significantly, years, maybe even a decade. But permanent paralysis, especially the knowledge, that's much harder.
You can't bomb knowledge away.
Exactly. You destroy buildings, equipment, fine. But the expertise, the blueprints, the political will, that's almost impossible to eliminate with bombs alone.
Okay, let's get into the how, the anatomy of this strike. Starting with the star player, the Ghost, the B-2 Spirit strategic bomber.
An absolute beast of an aircraft, costing something like $2.1 billion per plane.
Incredible, and it's the central element for delivering the knockout blow here, right?
Absolutely. Its stealth is the key. That unique flying wing design, no vertical tail fin, which is a huge radar reflector on normal planes.
Plus special materials.
Oh yeah, composite materials all over, coated with radar-absorbing paint. Makes it incredibly hard to detect across different radar frequencies. It's huge, over 52 meters wingspan, but designed to slip through defenses. Powerful engines give it amazing range too.
And that range is key. What is that capability, 9,600 kilometers unrefueled range? What does that mean practically for a mission like this?
It means it could, theoretically, take off from White Man Air Force Base in Missouri.
Middle of America.
Fly halfway across the world, hit targets in Iran, and fly back, without landing. It fundamentally changes long-range power projection. You don't necessarily need forward bases in potentially risky areas. Reduces logistics, reduces political headaches, allows for surprise attacks launched directly from U.S. soil. It's an unparalleled global strike capability.
So if the B-2 is the Ghost, the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, the MOP is definitely the Hammer.
No question. This thing is huge, 13,600 kilograms. It's the most powerful non-nuclear penetrating bomb the U.S. has, designed specifically for hitting targets buried deep underground, hardened targets.
Like Fordow?
Exactly like Fordow. But it's not just a big dumb bomb, it's guided.
How accurate?
Very. Uses GPS and INS, inertial navigation. Dropped from high altitude, it hits supersonic speeds before impact. The kinetic energy alone is immense, like a freight train hitting a wall, is how it's described.
And the explosion?
The casing is super strong steel, 6.2 meters long. It penetrates deep, and then the 2,400 kilogram explosive payload detonates with a delay. Creates an artificial earthquake effect designed to collapse the entire underground structure.
Now, I read something about countermeasures. Iran developing super strong concrete.
That's the report. Ultra-high performance concrete, maybe over 30,000 psi compressive strength. That could definitely reduce the MOP's penetration depth.
So does that defeat the MOP? Does it undermine that nowhere to hide message?
It complicates it. It means maybe one MOP isn't enough. Maybe you need multiple, precisely targeted strikes on the exact same spot to punch through. It adds uncertainty, increases the complexity.
So the cat-mouse game continues.
Always. The message shifts slightly. Maybe not one hit, lights out, but more like, we can hit you repeatedly if necessary until we break through. The strategic message is still potent, but the tactical challenge, the cost, goes up.
Okay, so the B-2s carrying their MOPs don't just fly alone. Their success depends on this huge, complicated effort to deal with Iran's air defenses.
See dead.
Suppression of enemy air defenses, or destruction of enemy air defenses. Yeah, like a complex symphony, multiple players, perfect timing.
What's the first movement? First wave, Tomahawk cruise missiles. Launched, in this scenario, from a submarine like the USS Georgia.
A converted Ohio-class sub. How many missiles?
Up to 154 Tomahawks. They fly low, terrain-hugging, hitting key air defense spots, radars, command centers maybe 30 minutes before the main strike package arrives.
Why? What's the goal?
So chaos. Blind them. force them to turn on the remaining radars, which then makes them targets themselves. The newer Tomahawk Block Vs can even send intel back in real time.
Okay, chaos created. Then what?
Then comes the electronic symphony, the EA-18G Growler electronic warfare jets.
Growlers! Their job is jamming.
Primarily, yes. They carry powerful ALQ-99 jamming pods. They flood Iranian radars with electronic noise, false targets, distorted information, basically blinding the enemy's electronic eyes, making it impossible to track incoming threats accurately. It's information warfare at light speed.
Rendering their sensors useless.
Pretty much. And then you have the hunters and killers, the 5th-gen fighters.
F-22s and F-35s, different roles.
Very different. The F-22 Raptor is the air guardian, pure air superiority. It flies high, clears the skies of any Iranian fighters that might try to intercept. Its job is total air dominance, creating a safe corridor.
And the F-35?
The F-35 Lightning II plays the stealth quarterback. It uses its incredible sensors passively, sucking up data on all active enemy air defense systems without giving away its own position by emitting radar signals.
So it maps the threats silently. What then?
If it detects a threat, say an S-300 radar lights up, the F-35 doesn't usually attack it directly. Instead, it uses its secure Link 16 data link to instantly transmit the precise coordinates.
To who?
To non-stealth fighters flying further back, like the F-A-18 Super Hornets.
Ah, the quarterback shooter tactic.
Exactly. The F-35 is the eyes, leveraging its stealth. It has limited internal weapons to stay stealthy anyway. The F-A-18, the Super Hornet, is the flying arsenal, the shooter. It carries lots of anti-radiation missiles like HARM.
So the Super Hornet takes the shot from a safer distance.
Right. It can launch its missiles based on the F-35's targeting data, sometimes without even needing its own radar lock on the target. It's network-centric warfare, embodied maximizing strengths, minimizing weaknesses, all digitally linked.
So just to recap the sheer scale of this hypothetical U.S. force.
The scenario outlines something like 7 B-2 bombers delivering 14 MOPs, 4 F-22s for air cover, 8 F-35s acting as those stealthy eyes, 4 Growlers for jamming, 30 Tomahawks fired from a submarine, the USS Georgia, and then several dozen F-18s ready to take out any radar that pops up. It's a massive coordinated force.
Okay, now let's flip the script. Let's look at the Fortress Iran's defenses and try to give a realistic assessment. On paper, their integrated air defense system, the IADS, looks pretty serious, built up over decades.
It is. They've invested heavily using domestic production and buying systems from Russia and China. It's multi-layered.
What about long range?
They have Russian S-300 PMU-2 systems, 4 batteries delivered around 2016 with a range of about 200 kilometers, plus their own indigenous system, the Bavar 373.
How good is the Bavar?
Tehran claims it's comparable to, or even better than, the S-300, maybe even aspects of the S-400, claims over 200-kilometer range and ability to hit stealth targets. And just recently, in 2024, they showed off the new Armand system, supposedly for long-range ballistic missile defense to 180-kilometer range.
And medium range.
They have their own Cordad family. The Cordad 3 is the one that famously shot down that U.S. Global Hawk drone back in 2019.
Right, I remember that.
And the Cordad 15, which they claim can spot stealth targets out to 85 kilometers, plus other systems like the Rod family.
And short range for low flyers.
Russian Tor M1 systems, and their own designs like the Yavahar and Hers 9. So yeah, layer upon layer, this comprehensive.
It does sound comprehensive, but what are the weaknesses? What's the Achilles heel?
Well, despite that impressive list, there are significant vulnerabilities. The biggest is probably integration.
Meaning?
It's a patchwork. Systems from different countries, different generations, Russian, Chinese, Iranian, getting them all to talk to each other seamlessly, share data in real time, operate under unified command. It's extremely difficult.
So there are gaps, seams between the systems.
Exactly. Seams that can be exploited by advanced electronic warfare or tactics. And then there's the technological lag. Decades of sanctions have limited their access to the really cutting-edge stuff. Modern radar tech, signal processing, secure network communications. They're likely generations behind the U.S. in those areas.
What about support aircraft? Eyes in the sky.
That's another huge weakness. An effective IADS needs things like AOACS planes, airborne warning, and control systems for long-range detection over the horizon. Iran doesn't really have those. And their fighter fleet, mostly outdated F-14s, MiG-29s, not enough modern interceptors.
So they lack the big picture view and the modern fighters to act on it.
Pretty much. And finally, even the best system can be overwhelmed. Saturation. A massive strike package like the one described, over 125 aircraft, missiles, jamming, decoys, can simply paralyze any defense through sheer numbers and complexity.
Okay, this brings us to something really intriguing, maybe even contradictory in the intelligence scenario we're looking at. We've just described Iran's layered defense, S-300s, Bavar 373. So why does this specific Midnight Hammer scenario seem to assume that Iran's IADS fires not a single SAM, not one missile against this huge attacking force? That seems odd.
It does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it? Which leads to this other theory, maybe a preceding operation?
Operation Rising Lion.
Rising Lion, what's that?
A hypothetical Israeli pre-strike, perhaps happening, say, 10 days before Midnight Hammer.
An Israeli operation first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Using their own F-35I stealth fighters, their sophisticated electronic warfare, precision weapons, to systematically go after and dismantle key parts of Iran's air defense network before the main U.S. strike, targeting those S-300s, command centers, key radars.
Oh, so if that happened...
Then Midnight Hammer isn't a contested air battle anymore. It becomes more like a cleanup operation or a deliberate demonstration of overwhelming power against an already degraded defense.
That makes more sense of the no SAMs fire detail. It shifts the whole perspective. It's less about fighting through defenses, more about showing force.
Precisely. And projecting that force sends multiple messages to different audiences.
Well, to Iran, the message is stark. Resistance is futile. Don't even think about rebuilding quickly, because we can do this again.
Okay. And beyond Iran.
To rivals like China and Russia, it's a demonstration that even advanced systems they export, like the S-300, aren't foolproof against a full-scale, technologically superior assault, a clear message about U.S. capabilities.
And for U.S. planners themselves.
It reflects a doctrine of guaranteed success. When you're sending assets worth billions, like the B-2, on such a critical mission, you plan for the worst-case scenario and apply overwhelming force to absolutely minimize risk. Even if prior actions weaken the target, you still go in full strength. It's about ensuring the mission succeeds, period.
All right, let's move into the aftermath, the reckoning. What happens after the bombs hit? The immediate impact seems obvious. Economic shockwaves.
Absolutely. Global energy markets would react instantly. Oil prices would surge, purely on the heightened geopolitical risk.
And this isn't just numbers on a screen, right? This could hit people directly.
Yeah, for sure. A major spike in oil prices could potentially trigger a global recession. That affects everything: gas prices, heating bills, the cost of goods, potentially your job security.
And the Strait of Hormuz is ground zero for this, isn't it?
Central to it.
Yeah.
Something like 20% of the world's oil passes through that narrow choke point.
Could Iran blockade it completely?
A full sustained blockade is probably unlikely. It would hurt their own remaining exports too. But they could definitely create a high-risk zone.
Oh.
Naval mines, shore-based anti-ship missiles, their Mosquito fleet, those fast IRGC patrol boats conducting harassing attacks, drones, suicide UAVs targeting tankers.
So even if not fully closed, just making it dangerous.
Would send shipping insurance premiums through the roof, cause massive delays. Some analysts estimate oil could spike to $130 a barrel in a bad scenario. The economic fallout would be huge and global.
Okay, beyond the economy, what about the geopolitical chessboard? How would the big players react? China, Russia?
They would strongly condemn the U.S. strike, call it aggression, violation of sovereignty, etc. Lots of diplomatic noise at the UN.
But would they intervene militarily?
Highly unlikely. Direct military support for Iran against a U.S. strike. Very improbable. It would likely expose the limits of that so-called axis of autocracies. It's more a situational alignment against the U.S. than a true military alliance willing to risk direct conflict.
What about powers in the region? Israel?
Israel would clearly be the main beneficiary. Seeing the nuclear program of its primary existential threat severely damaged, that's a strategic win for them.
And the Arab Gulf states? Saudi Arabia, the UAE?
They'd be in a very tricky spot. Publicly, they call for restraint, de-escalation. Privately, they fear Iranian retaliation against their own oil facilities, but they also secretly welcome anything that weakens their regional rival Iran. So likely quiet coordination with the U.S. while publicly urging calm, a delicate balancing act.
Now, Iran itself, unable to match the U.S. militarily, how would they respond?
They'd turn to their strength. Asymmetric warfare. Not a quick counterpunch, but a long, drawn-out campaign. A war of time and nerves designed to inflict steady pain, politically, economically, human cost, to erode U.S. resolve over time.
What forms could that take? You mentioned proxies earlier.
Definitely. Groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, Shia militias in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen, they could activate them to target U.S. bases, allied interests, maybe even Israeli targets or civilian infrastructure in the region.
What else? Direct Iranian action.
Possibly. The IRGC Aerospace Force could launch ballistic missiles, likely targeting softer U.S. military bases in places like Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait. Not necessarily to win, but to demonstrate capability, show they can strike back.
And the maritime threat. Hormuz again?
Yes, the IRGC Navy and maybe the Houthis could ramp up attacks on commercial shipping, not just in Hormuz, but maybe the Red Sea too. Disrupting trade, creating fear.
What about cyber?
Cyber warfare is almost certain. Targeting critical U.S. infrastructure, financial systems, energy grids, transportation networks, trying to create chaos and disruption within the U.S. itself.
And the darkest tool, terrorism.
That's a real risk. The Quds Force, potentially activating sleeper cells globally, targeting U.S. or Israeli embassies, cultural centers, even citizens abroad. It becomes a truly diverse, multi-front shadow war.
Which brings us to maybe the most critical long-term point. Smoke and ruins, not a clean slate.
Precisely. A military strike destroys buildings, smashes centrifuges, ruins equipment.
Right.
But it cannot destroy the knowledge. Decades of accumulated scientific expertise. It can't reliably destroy all the technical documents, which can be copied, dispersed, hidden. And crucially, it almost certainly won't destroy Iran's political will to get nuclear weapons.
Might it even strengthen it?
Quite possibly. And great external attack could easily rally public support around the regime, empower hardliners who always argued against diplomacy, and solidify the belief that they need a nuclear deterrent for survival.
So what's the single most dangerous potential consequence here?
Iran immediately and fully withdrawing from the NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and kicking out all the international inspectors from the IAEA.
Why is that so critical?
Because before a strike, even with all the issues, there's some international oversight, some monitoring. The world has at least a rough idea of Iran's nuclear material stockpile, where facilities are, what they're doing. It's imperfect, but it's something.
But after a strike, after they pull out of the NPT and kick out inspectors,
the program goes completely dark, into a black box.
Yes, meaning?
Iran would be free to rebuild, potentially faster, in new, secret, dispersed locations anywhere in the country. The world would lose all visibility, all ability to track their activities, assess how close they are to a bomb. So the problem shifts fundamentally. It goes from being a managed, somewhat visible proliferation risk
to a completely hidden nuclear weapons program.
Exactly. And nobody would know for sure how close Iran is or when they might cross the threshold.
Yeah.
That makes future crises infinitely more volatile, more dangerous, harder to manage.
So it's quite striking. A tactical success in destroying buildings
could potentially lead to a massive strategic failure, creating a far worse, more intractable, long-term threat to international security.
So wrapping this up, what does this deep dive really tell us? It seems like in these complex geopolitical situations, what looks like a decisive military fix
can unravel into something far more complicated, maybe even strategically counterproductive. The ripple effects, the unintended consequences, they can be vast.
It really raises a fundamental question for all of us, for you listening to think about. Is trying to achieve known, even if imperfect, control over an adversary's capabilities, is that worth the risk of potentially pushing those capabilities completely into the shadows?
Creating an even bigger, unquantifiable threat down the line.
Yeah, there are no easy answers here. It's about understanding those cascading effects, the true cost, the real meaning of a solution.
It's maybe a reminder that sometimes the toughest battles aren't fought with bombs and stealth jets,
but with diplomacy, with patience, with a real willingness to dig deep and understand the motivations and consequences on all sides. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hypothetical Operation Midnight Hammer. We hope you gained some valuable insights into the many, many layers of this incredibly challenging topic.
It's certainly a lot to think about.
It is indeed. Until next time, keep digging deeper.